Alrighty, welcome to the Student Crow Forum with President Crow. My name is Mason DeVico, and I am the student body president for ASU Tempe. And on behalf of the Associated Students of ASU, I would like to welcome you all to the forum. Before we get started, I want to introduce you to the fellow student body presidents of ASU that make up the Council of Presidents. Today, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Alberto Plantillas. I'm Chief of Staff to the Graduate Student Government. I'm here on behalf of the Graduate Student Government Student Body President, Kelly Bauer.
And then we have Sharia, who is the Polytech President. And then as of right now, not in attendance, we have the Downtown Student Body President, Shanika Mathis, and the West Valley Student Body President, Cedra Shaheen. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over the format of today's discussion. We will take some time to hear from President Crow about some university updates. Then we will begin with the Q&A portion, where I will be asking, where me and Alberto will be asking questions submitted to us prior to this forum. We will also have the other presidents who will be moderating questions you have submitted live with the QR code. We will also ask those questions directly from the Q&A via the Zoom format. Because we only have 1 hour with President Crow, we understand that not all questions will be answered. However, we will follow up with your questions within 1 week, within 1 week of this forum. Following our updates on ASASU website throughout the school year and our upcoming priorities for the academic year. Thank you, President Crow, for being here today. Before we get started on some questions students have, can you share some university updates with us?
Thanks. I just ran into some visitors from the University of Illinois outside at Urbana, and I'm like, well, welcome to our 100-degree spring day with music playing and groups outside and all the energy that's so fantastic about our students and all the groups that are out there being represented and so forth. So, I mean, all in all, here we are past the midpoint of the spring semester 2025. We're into the first quarter of the second quarter of the century. 2025 forward is the second quarter of the century. So all in all, the university is operating at a very high level of effectiveness. We have the highest retention rates that we've had ever. We're anticipating the highest graduation rates that we've had, the largest numbers of graduates that we've had, the most diverse set of graduates that we've had from every family background and every socioeconomic group. So we're excited about all that. Applications are going well for the institution. One area of significant disruption at the moment are about 80 projects that have been canceled by the U.S. government for various reasons. They have the authority to cancel these projects because they're often grants, and grants are canceled. They can be canceled at any moment. But nonetheless, the impact in the areas where these projects are operating is significant. Essentially all of, or nearly all of our USAID projects have been canceled in the field. All of those operations were very important undertakings. The building of new kinds of universities, the technological enhancement of university clusters in Central America, in Africa, in Asia, in other parts of the world. Lots of things that are going on, so there's a fair amount of disruption going on there. We've also had projects that have been canceled because of the topic of the project. Vaccine education projects have been canceled. All of the projects that we have that are related to anything associated with that have been literally canceled. And so there are some waves of impacts that are going on. We're obviously working to find ways that we can be of higher rates of innovation and greater impact to the state, to the country, to others, to our students, and so we're working to accelerate our innovation at all levels. We have built relationships with about 55 large language model companies. These are the computational companies that people euphemistically sometimes refer to as AI companies, artificial intelligence companies. They're basically hyper fast calculators that have the ability to calculate across massive numbers of word associations and give you word association outcomes. And so we've got a lot going on in that realm. We've got a big meeting coming up in San Diego the next couple of weeks that we've run now for 16 years called the ASU GSV Educational Technology Summit. That's us and a Silicon Valley-based venture capital firm looking for new technologies to enhance learning outcomes. We are accelerating all things towards ultimately building for students, faculty, and staff agentic assistance, agent-based assistance, where each person will be able to take all of their work, all of their courses, everything that they've read, everything that they're doing, and build their own AI tool from that, as well as every course being AI enhanced. These are far from some of the concerns that people have about, doing away with your ability to think. That would be very difficult for something to come along that does away with your ability to think. But how can you have a better educational experience or learn more broadly or learn more in more focused ways? So all of that's going on as we speak. I think all in all, we're doing well at a moment also of just lots of complexity. There are wars against democracy in Europe. There's the ongoing war in Israel and Palestine, all these things that are going on all at the same time, which are quite complicated. But in the midst of all that, we're moving forward with what we're principally here to do, which is to educate students, to create new knowledge, to synthesize that knowledge, and to produce new, unbelievably empowered human beings as master learners, to produce new kinds of ideas and theories about who we are, where we're going, what we can do, what we can achieve, what we understand, and then also using a technical term maybe from my generation, gizmos. What gizmos can we build? There was a fantastic gizmo that I just read about today, in fact, coming out of the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory on the UC Berkeley campus, which was a whole new element that had never been produced before. It was just created by these scientists, in which nuclear waste could be managed with this new element, perhaps. And so I thought that's a gizmo. So that's it.
Thank you so much, President Crow. To kick off the Q&A portion, we will ask some questions, or some of the questions that were submitted to us. If you are joining via Zoom, the questions featured on the webinar, or that feature is on. So if you have any questions during this time, you can type your questions there. If you are joining us live, please use the QR code to submit your questions. To start off, it's evident based on several of the same or similar questions we received. Students care about the LGBTQ+ community. Therefore, our first question is regarding our support for our peers who identify with this community. Why were the LGBTQ+ related resources moved from university pages towards the RAINCO pages? And while I am aware that you have answered this question prior to this forum or in some sort of capacity, considering the current dynamics, it may be helpful to address this question again as students are asking. And does ASU have any plans to create an LGBTQ+ center or anything similar on campus specifically for the betterment of ASU's LGBTQ+
Yeah, so there's
population?
three parts to the question, and I don't know that I have the answer to any of those specifically, but I'll give you our general theory of action, and that is that we're here to support all students. All students with whoever they are, whoever they want to be, whoever they are striving to be. All of their personal choices are their choices, and so we support them. In terms of what we've done with this website or that website, I don't know. Maybe Dr. Vogel knows. There have been some speech concerns relative to certain verbiage that the present government of the United States is concerned about. In general, those have not been issues at ASU in any significant way. But before I go to the LGBTQ Center, Dr. Vogel, any comments on the websites? Because I'm not familiar with
Yep,
whatever.
so we've unified the resources of support under the Rainbow Coalition. So if you're
This is
looking,
Dr. Joanne Vogel, the Vice President for Student Affairs at ASU.
Yep, so if you're looking for resources and you don't know where to find them, feel free to reach out. I'm going to also make a mention of all of the deans of students who are in the room if you'd raise your hand. So If you're looking for support at any of our locations, always a great place to start if you don't know where else to start is to go to the deans of students. But indeed, as you mentioned, we have unified all of the resources under a single place. You'll find all of the same resources that you used to find there. And if you can't find what you're looking for, reach out to me or to one of the deans and we'll help you navigate through that.
Yeah, basically what we're trying to do is to be more effective, more clear, and so forth and so on. Now, relative to centers, so in the past, we haven't, nor do we have any plans to build centers or design centers for groups of students for whatever reason. And our logic for that is we don't want there to be separate groups. We want there to be a welcoming of all of our students, regardless of their background or their heritage or their life style or choices or whatever the term is. And so that's the reason that we have not done that in the past. We have, as you know, you have offices in a facility which is called the Student Pavilion, and it is a place in which all groups, all student interests can be brought together into a single place. And so that's really what we've been after, is not separate but together. And that still is our logic for design. Now, I'll also say that if students are feeling in any way concerned or threatened regarding their lives or their personal interests or whatever, they need to raise their hand immediately and contact the deans of students, contact me directly at michael.crow@asu.edu. There shouldn't be any feelings of insecurity or safety issues or some lack of rights within the institution for any group whatsoever. And so if that, but nonetheless, that can happen. And so, and it needs to be addressed. And so if there are concerns, don't hesitate. You know, you just let us know right away. We're not going to allow individuals or groups to start taking on, attacking other groups that perhaps they have some disagreement with or some proclivity to be biased against or something like that. We're not going to let that happen. So,
Thank you. No, thank you so much, and thank you, Dr. Vogel, for providing that information as well.
This question is from a graduate student. ASU prides itself as one of the most innovative, accessible, and inclusive universities. Recent actions suggest a lack of transparency in policies and an increasing tendency to prioritize administrative decisions over genuine community input. With faculty, staff, and students expressing uncertainty about their role in shaping these policies, how are you ensuring that ASU's commitment to diversity and inclusion remains substantive rather than symbolic?
well, that's an interesting question, not with a single particular fact. And so that's a broad generalization. And so it's easy to comment on a broad generalization because in the broad generalization that question represents, all the facts portray that, in fact, we have a very complexly diverse student body. We're an unbelievably inclusive institution, staff-wise, faculty-wise, student-wise, and all the numbers bear that out. And they bear that out because we became an institution more than 2 decades ago committed to admitting every qualified student, period. And the second you start admitting every qualified student, the institution's student body, to the point, the overall point of the question, is attained. The questioner has framed the question, alleging something without being specific. And so I'd have to know the specific concern that the person has and be happy to take the question. This notion that somehow the institution is driven by a bunch of bean counting administrators, I'll take that as sort of an extreme version of the questioner's intent. That's the furthest from the truth. The institution is a broadly scoped, unbelievably spread out amalgamation of 250 academic units in 20 colleges with 40,000 staff that work at the institution. So it's possible that a person could encounter another person or a group within the institution that's making it seem like something, but that's not the institution itself. So I would just need more specifics to the person's concern. To this notion that somehow decisions are being made, we've changed nothing. Our admission standards remain the same. Our pursuit of financial aid for students that don't have the financial means to be a part of the institution. That has accelerated our commitment to our concept of inclusion versus exclusion and success of our students, as in the first paragraph of our charter, unchanged. All of that is focused. All of that is resulting in tremendously positive outcomes. I won't walk through all the numbers. The numbers sort of tell the story. You know, is the institution inclusive? Absolutely. Are the graduates of the institution also inclusive? Absolutely. And so I'd have to know more specifics from that particular question.
Definitely. Thank you for your answer.
This next question is from Zoe. This individual would like to know what ASU's stance is on ICE entering the campus in relation to the current federal immigration policies that we are seeing.
So ICE stands for Immigration and Customs Enforcement, and it is an agency of the Department of Homeland Security authorized by the United States government to manage immigration and customs. Customs has to do with the taxing of materials being brought into the United States and the control of things being brought in, and immigration is people coming into the United States. So ICE is a legal police force that has the right to pursue individuals, and so what we have said to them, and ASU Police Chief Thompson is here, he can wave his hand over there. So we've asked all police forces, including ICE, to coordinate with us when they're pursuing individuals who are being pursued for criminal activity. We hope that they do. I think right now, as far as I know, we haven't had any ICE issues. They haven't called us up and said, we're interested in something going on here. Our students are legally present, and so our international students are here on visas. Our DACA students are here under the DACA legal presence clauses. The people of Arizona, by public referendum, just a couple years ago, decided that all students could pay in-state tuition if you graduated from an Arizona high school and you'd been here for a couple years, and so that's resolved that issue, which was regarding the cost or the price. And so we've communicated with ICE, you know, please follow our procedure, let the ASU Police Department know what's going on, and we hope that they do that.
Thank you.
This question is from Emra from West Valley. ASU emphasizes innovation and entrepreneurship, but many students worry about career readiness post-graduation. What steps is ASU taking to ensure students are well prepared for the job market, particularly in competitive fields? I read recently that Harvard couldn't even get their students to get jobs after graduation.
Well, Harvard's got lots of issues, and so the anxiety that this questioner is presenting is it doesn't go away in your life as you get older, you know, meaning your anxiety about your employment and your family's well-being and your check that you need to pay your bills. I'm just telling you that anxiety never goes away. So welcome to the world in which you can have that anxiety. And so, yes, welcome to the market. And so what I will say is that ASU has among the most employable graduates in the world. We are in the top handful of universities, top 10, in fact, in terms of employability of our graduates. 97% of our graduates are either employed or in graduate school a year from graduation, give or take. So we're very excited about that. We have over 10,000 organizations recruited ASU. ASU graduates have a very high standing in the marketplace. That is, their degrees are very valuable in the market. Not every college has the same value to its degree in the market. There are colleges that I won't mention, whose degrees are worth more, only 5% more over your lifetime than your high school diploma. So you go to college, you spend all the money on college, and your degree only gives you a 5% bump in your income outcome. Our degrees are worth more than 100% more than if you have a high school, doubling your income, and in many cases, much more than that. That's on average. And so the way to deal with anxiety, at least the way I deal with my anxieties, is to overcompensate in the following way. And so don't bet on one horse, bet on 10. That is, don't apply to one thing, one track, one direction, one job, one thing that you wish that you could do. And then all of a sudden you get beat out in the last thing by this one person who had, you know, blue eyes and you had brown eyes. I have brown eyes. So I always get beat out by people with blue eyes. And so at least that's what you think if it comes down to the one thing. You've got to come up with some reason. And so what you need to do is to hedge. You constantly need, you know, what are the 3 or 4 things that you're interested in? And what are the 10 jobs that might be available in those 3 or 4 things? And then always in your back pocket have your hedge of hedges. I mean, whatever it is that else. So I talk to people that are in supply chain school. You know, I say join the Navy as a supply officer. The supply officer school in the Navy is the most unbelievable training mechanism that you could possibly imagine. And then if you look at what happens to the men and women that go to that supply school, they all become CEOs and CFOs and COOs at early ages from their training in the Navy. And they look at me and say, I never thought of the Navy. Are you crazy? I said, well, you never thought of the Navy because you don't think about how the country really works. You don't think about what the country really needs. I'm just using that as an example. So in the back of your pocket, then have a couple things that are out of the norm. So when people talk to me and they say, I'm applying to this graduate school and it's really the one I want to go to, I say, well, that'll be good, except if they don't like you. And the way that this works is you get admitted to graduate schools because particular professors like you. And if they don't like you, well, too bad for you. And so you better have applied to not only more graduate schools, but you better have applied to things other than graduate school also, because you have to have your hedge. And so the anxiety, that's never going to go away. Drink more tea. Green tea is good. Tea's really good. Yoga, which is hard for my body type, but yoga is good also.
Thank you for your career betting advice.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Especially as a graduating senior right now, that's exactly what I'm doing.
Yeah, and how many jobs have you applied for?
Well, I haven't started that just
What do you mean
yet.
haven't started? This should be, and I'm going to give you this advice. I'm not even going to charge you anything. So you should already be applying. You should be applying all over the place.
Well, I do have an internship right now with DEMA. So
What's that pay?
Well, it's unpaid.
Yeah, right.
But I do have a job lined up there, but I am looking
all
into other ones
All
right now.
You just apply because this is what will happen. You could have applied for a job in the federal government and you could be a probationary employee, and now you don't, and now you don't have a job.
Well, I did work for the federal government with the Senate office, but I've taken a step back
Yes,
from that.
right.
But moving on to our next question. This is from an undergraduate Tempe student. Have you heard of the Sun Devil Swipe campaign? Several students are organizing to create a meal swipe donation program for food insecure Sun Devils. Our vendor Airmark has a program like this at several other universities. Would we be able to set one up?
I don't know how that works, but whatever works to help people have more access to what they need to be successful, we're going to look at it, we're going to weigh it, we're going to evaluate it, and if it looks like it's going to work, we're going to do it. They should talk to Dr. Vogel and that team in student affairs to talk about all that. So
Perfect. Thank you. This next question is again from an undergraduate student. What is ASU going to do to ensure students can use their constitutional right to freedom of speech and peaceful protesting without fear of punishment?
Well, that's a complex question, and I'll try to give at least parts of the complex answer. We do protect those rights right now. How do I know that we protect free speech? Because I hear from all the people condemning the people that we allow to speak here. It's like a 360-degree, inwardly focused group of individuals shooting arrows at us. Why did you allow this person to speak here? And why did you allow this person to speak here? And I can't believe you allowed this person to speak here, and this person to speak here, and this person to speak here. And so we allowed them to speak here because we protect our faculty and students' rights to invite people to present their views here. So we do this on an ongoing and consistent basis. Now, certain types of speech, while free speech in the street or free speech on your website are not allowed at ASU. All students, all staff, all faculty are a part of a community, and within this community, we do not allow speech that suggests violence. We do not allow genocidal speech, which calls for the death of another person based on some aspect of their genocide comes from their genetic backgrounds, their their religious or physical or some type of aspect of them. We don't allow that either. And so we also only allow free speech to occur, free speech events to occur in certain places at certain times, at certain volumes, so as not to disrupt the rest of the university. So there's no limit on free speech except for the fact that you cannot build encampments on the campus of Arizona State University. You can't build structures. You can't build latrines for people to defecate in, which people have done. You can't do those things, but you can have demonstrations. You can have events. You can have speakers. We go to great lengths to protect free speech. Also, the university is not a park. So we're a university where students and faculty are advancing the institution. And so we don't like just say anyone can show up on campus and do whatever they want. Like, some group wants to have, some event here and they want us to be like a public park. We're not a public park. This is a working, functioning, in-performance university in which you cannot disrupt the functions of the university. You have no right to disrupt the working of the institution. You have a right to have a speaker come, to have a demonstration, to have the demonstration within the rules that we have, and then if you don't follow those rules, you make yourself subject to university discipline. You can make yourself subject to arrest if you violate the law. You make yourself subject to all kinds of things, including your ability to be a part of the community. So if you call for, my family's Methodist, so it's a Protestant faith from England that came to the United States a few hundred years ago, and my family came to the United States a few hundred years ago. So you can't stand up and say, death to all Methodists, because that's a threat of violence against me because of my family's religion. You can't do that. You can't say that. Now you can put death to all Methodists on a sign and hang it out in front of your house. It's not very nice, and it's a terrible thing to say, but here in this university community, you can't say that. And so we do have sort of a set of rules and conditions about demonstrations. We allow demonstrations between 5 a.m. and 11 p.m. We allow them when they're registered. We allow them when they are assigned a certain space. We allow them when they're not leading to some kind of unsafe outcome. So one other thing we have to worry about on all these things is public safety. And so if one student group is going to have a speaker here, and all of a sudden 1,000 people come to campus to threaten this speaker or people that are going to the event, we'll do everything that we can to protect everyone, but we're not going to hold an event where we are not able to protect the safety of the people that are in attendance, particularly the people that are part of the university community. So all these things have to be weighed together. We have a green rating from the group that rates the free speech policies of universities. That's the highest rating that you can have. It's a group called FIRE. We are a signee and adherent of the University of Chicago's free speech documents, and so we live up to those to the best that we can. Maybe the only other thing that I would add is that all of us, every person is responsible for their speech.
Thank you.
And so every person's responsible for their speech. That's the only other thing that I would add.
Agreed. And thank you.
This next question is from a West Valley student. ASU promotes interdisciplinary work across various fields. How do you encourage collaboration between departments, and what impact do you see this having on students?
Well, one thing that we've done in the last 23 years that I've been in this role is we have eliminated 85 academic departments, schools, or colleges, and then built several dozen new transdisciplinary schools. And so that's a form of encouragement right there, because we have new academic units that are working in new ways, number one. Number two, we have deans and directors and faculty who are, for the most part, open-minded about collaboration. Number three, we have easy mechanisms for students to double major, triple major, or even more than triple major. You know, you take 3 majors in 2 languages or whatever, so we have all of that going on. We also have dozens and dozens and dozens of trans and interdisciplinary research centers, research initiatives, all of those kinds of programs. And also, in particular with leaders of schools and colleges, we have individuals who are not only interested in or focused on their own individual college. They're They're focused on how their college or their school can then work with other units also.
Thank you.
Thank you. This next question is from an undergraduate student. How did the recent state funding cuts and subsequent tuition surcharge affect out-of-state students specifically? And are there any plans to mitigate these impacts or provide additional support?
Well, we have a tuition policy that was approved some time ago by the Arizona Board of Regents, in which it states that we will surcharge students, in-state students, for any reduction in state appropriations to the institution, which we did in this particular case. That surcharge goes away if those dollars are restored, and we have that in our budget, and that budget was approved for submission to the legislature by the governor. So in the governor's budget, we have that restoration. And if that restoration is made by the legislature, which we're hopeful that it is, and we're making that case for that, then that surcharge will go away. To out-of-state students, out-of-state tuition at ASU is set on the following logic, kind of what we call average out-of-state tuition. So if you're an out-of-state student and you're wanting to go to a university in another state and you're not paying taxes in that state, what are those tuitions approximately? And we're like, well, let's kind of be in the average range of those. Those tuitions, by the way, our out-of-state tuition is about half of our comparator private universities, that is private universities that are in the same league as ASU as a university, that is National Research University. So a national research university like the University of Southern California or Stanford or Rice, where I just was over there giving a talk a couple weeks ago, schools like that. University of Chicago, I was just did a Zoom with the president of the University of Chicago just the other day. Their tuitions are between $70,000 and $80,000 a year. So we're at half of that. So we try to keep our out-of-state tuition at about the average of the out-of-states among the big public national universities, and at half of what it is at one of the other institutions. And so I don't know the exact nature of the question of how those things are correlated, because I don't know if the questioner is an in-state student or an out-of-state student.
I believe they are an out-of-state student.
Yeah, so out-of-state tuition is, so we have the ability to, under our tuition policy with the regents, to raise in-state tuition by up to a certain amount, not more than 3%, and out-of-state tuition up to a certain amount, not more than 5%, without going back to the regents for approval. And we did that last year, and it's likely that we'll have to do that again this year because of inflation and other kinds of costs. But we keep those costs modest, and we maintain our focus on financial aid. So they're out-of-state tuition and in-state tuition are correlated, but they're not related in the sense that they're not set by each other.
Would there be any possibility of going over that 3 or 5%?
We could, but we'd have to go back to the board for that approval, and we don't plan on going over that. So we're living within what is soon approaching a 15-year commitment where we haven't raised the in-state tuition more than, on average, 1.7 or 1.8%. I don't remember the exact number, but we've kept it low for almost 15 years. We've not gone above. We're trying not to have jolts. We're trying to keep it as predictable as possible for the entire undergraduate life, 4 years, let's say, for an undergraduate student. And so right now we're trying to live within that arena, that financial arena, that structure. So far we're able to, although I will say that the combinations of financial uncertainty, federal uncertainty, inflation, stock market changes, all these things affect the financial structure of the institution. And so people are always like, well, why do you have to raise our tuition? And I said, well, tuition is our main revenue source. And so it's the main means by which we pay for the faculty, pay for the institution. Main as in around 50% of the revenue of the institution. So it's a very significant revenue source.
Thank you.
What next is ASU taking to make higher education more affordable and accessible for students, as we have seen astronomical rising costs in education? And with the new federal funding budget, should students be worried about scholarships like the Obama Scholarship Program?
Right, very good question. Astronomical is a term of art. So we actually haven't had astronomical increases in our tuition, and tuition's not the same as the cost to an individual student. So almost 80% of our undergraduate students are on some kind of financial aid. For students from very, very low income families with no means in the family from students from Arizona, we have tuition mechanisms to support their tuition because they have no way to pay for tuition, so we have that. And so actually we work vigilantly to keep costs down. Now, here's what happens. So you grow up in a working class family and you go to a public high school and all of a sudden you go to a university and somebody says it costs money. And you're like, well, I'm not used to that because it didn't cost me any money to go to the public high school, and so therefore why is the public university cost money? Well, every state among the 50 states had different policies for their universities. So in Pennsylvania, to go to the University of Pittsburgh, Penn State, or Temple, the three big public universities in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the in-state tuition is $20,000. And even more in engineering and other kinds of subjects. In the state of Florida, they've kept the in-state tuition down around $6,000. In the state of Georgia, if you get a B average in high school, you can go to a public university, of which there's about 25, with no tuition because they pay for your tuition with lottery funds. Well, in Arizona, we have very little public support, more like Pennsylvania or New Hampshire or Vermont. Those are three states very much like us. We have very little state financial aid like they have in Georgia. And so what we are operating on is a highly efficient model of how we run the university, and the way we run the university also at a very large scale. So scale and efficiency then allow us to keep a very low tuition relative to our peers. Particularly, we operate much more on the basis of like a public university with little public support and with no state-based financial aid or very little state-based financial aid. So we've kept our tuition as low as we could conceivably keep it for in-state students, as modest as we could keep it for out-of-state students, and for international students. How many of you in here are international students? I know a few of you. It's much less expensive than you going to most other major American universities by a long shot, so we've kept that modest also. And that's kind of our way of working. Now, we're able to do that because of our scale, because of our efficiency, how we work, the tools that we have, the learning tools that we have, our online programs, which then are helpful to us in our financial structure. All those things kind of work together.
I appreciate that. I was also an Obama Scholar in my undergrad.
Oh, and let me just add on Obama Scholars. So Obama Scholars, thank you for that. Obama Scholars, that's that scholarship program is being looked at in terms of how can we optimize its outcome, because we're not necessarily getting all of the kinds of outcomes that we're looking for.
Thank you.
Thank you. This next question comes from a student within Barrett. Why doesn't ASU or Barrett offer veterans that don't have applicable VA benefits any discounts on credit hours?
Well, that's not even true. And so I'm going to ask Sean here, who's the head of the Tillman Center, to come up and answer this question. So, Sean, how are we doing with veterans, and what are the kinds of things that we put together for veterans and so forth?
Thank you, Dr. Crow. We currently have about 20,000 military-connected learners going to Arizona State University, which is the largest in the nation, obviously. We like to do things on steroids. We have multiple, not just GI Bill benefits that are available for student veterans. Part of that has to do a lot with where are you looking when you go to the VA?
Right.
Could you use Chapter 33? Could you use Chapter 31? What are some other benefits that maybe the VA has
And
for you?
Sean is a veteran, by the way, also. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I use my GI Bill benefits to go here to ASU and get my master's degree. So that's part of it, but we also raise scholarships. So if you're looking and you need some funding and you're a veteran, see my office. Get a hold of me, sean.bonzoff@asu.edu. I'll get you in touch with the right people. We'll see if we can get you some scholarship money.
Yeah, we have scholarships, we have special programs, we have all kinds of things. I mean, there's the veterans, and thank you all for your service to our country, are very well positioned to do very well at ASU. And so, and Sean is the person to talk to.
Thank you so much.
This next question is from an undergraduate downtown student. Why is there such limited housing on the downtown campus, and do you have a plan to build more? I know we're getting a medical school downtown, which will bring even more students.
Very good question. So we have enough spaces downtown for, I think, 2,100 or so, give or take, students to live in our residence halls. We have a fourth residence hall that's planned, which could add another 700 or 800. That could take us to around 3,000 students living in residence halls downtown. That's a large number of students in residence halls. And then since we built the downtown campus, more than 10,000 apartments have been built within a short walk of the downtown campus, and students live in a lot of those. And so I understand the need for more housing. We're working on more housing. We're going to grow from, over the next few years, from roughly 16 to 17,000 students living on campus. Is that about right? To hopefully 25,000 students living on all of our campuses. So we're working in that direction. If a student wants to live in a residence hall, they need to keep raising their hand and say, I want to live in a residence hall. So they should, again, contact Student Affairs and say, I want to live in a residence hall, even if it's all 4 years. I mean, we have rooms in downtown Phoenix also, so that not all of the spaces are even taken. What's our occupancy rate? So we have 10% still open, so we have another 200 rooms open, so 200 spaces.
Thank you.
That's amazing. This is also kind of a continuance off of that next question. What are you looking what are you most looking forward to for the medical school, and how do you see the new medical school improving and benefiting those who want to go? And then how will it differ from U of A?
Yeah. So ASU has launched something that we call ASU Health. ASU Health is our effort to say, what are all the things that ASU could do to bring about healthier outcomes for the lives of people in Arizona? There's about 8 initiatives under ASU Health, which is being led by Shireen Gabriel, who we hired from her job as president of Rush University in Chicago, which is a medical university. She'd been the dean of the Rutgers University Medical School before that, the dean of the Mayo Medical School before that. She's a member of the National Academy of Medicine, so she's a distinguished scientist physician, and she's leading the team, which is helping to put together with all the other leadership of the university 8 initiatives. One of those initiatives is the new School for Medicine and Medical Engineering, SOME, S-O-M-M-E, which will initially operationalize a pathway for a degree, for a medical degree with an engineering degree for all graduates. And so we're very excited about that. And we just hired Holly Lisenby, who's a former chaired professor at Duke University and a former senior director at the National Institutes of Health, who's a medical psychiatrist, engineer, genius who works on how to help healthy outcomes by energetic inputs outside of the brain into the brain. So she's a tremendous engineer, scientist herself. And so that team is now working on the medical school, which will initially have a small class of less than 50 students per year, 200 students in the medical school, but will grow over time to having different pathways to the medical degree, including a pathway that we will launch at some point where you begin medical school essentially in high school, and then accelerate your life through undergraduate and then finish your medical degree by your 6th year after high school. So we're looking at that as a pathway as well as other pathways. And so we hope to get our accreditation this summer of 2025. We hope to have a class for the medical school first year in the fall of 2026. That's where we're going. And then that would mean our first graduates would be in 2030. So this is a long-term thing. You don't have to be an engineer to get into the medical school, but you'll be an engineer when you leave the medical school. So those of you that are English majors thinking about medical school, no problem. It's just you have to have a flexible brain. You have a rigid brain, have a hard time. You have a flexible brain, you'll be fine.
What can we do about funding cuts? How can we make our voices heard? So many summer research programs this particular student was looking forward to applying suddenly vanished, and they are concerned how it will impact their preparation for graduate school and thus career preparation.
Well, I mean, I'll just say to everyone, that, I'm not talking about any particular election. Elections are powerful. They have outcomes, real outcomes. People under 30 generally don't vote very much. People under 25 definitely don't vote. People between 18 and 21 vote in very small numbers. And so I'm just talking in generalities. I mean, elections have consequences, as they say. And so the new government has been elected and they've decided to spend less on this or this or this or this or this. Okay, they got elected. That's their prerogative. They get to do that. And so that will have impacts on all kinds of things. There's no new postdocs being hired at Hopkins or Harvard or the University of California. We're still hiring. There are no new faculty members being hired at most of the major research universities in the country right now. All of that's on hold as things get sorted out. And so to the specific person, and the specific is, again, back to my question about employment, don't bet on one thing, don't have one track, don't have one way that you're going to go forward. Think of other ways and bet on all of those together, not on one. If you bet on one thing, and all of a sudden you were counting on the fact that there was going to be ocean water that was going to allow your boat to go across this particular inlet, and then all of a sudden you get there and you have a boat and there's no water, well, you're going to be in big trouble, particularly if it's a wide inlet. And so have more options, work on more pathways. You know, maybe stay in school longer, maybe pick up another degree, maybe those kinds of things. And so all of that is possible.
Thank you.
Perfect, thank you. This next question comes from Janet on Zoom. Considering the online students often have many other demands on their time, like raising families or working full-time jobs, why aren't they given the opportunity to take difficult STEM classes as Session C classes? Why are they only given the option to take these classes as accelerated classes, which means twice the workload in half the time? What are the plans that the university has to continue to improve STEM
Yeah,
classes?
I don't know the details of the ABC schedule for particular STEM classes, but I understand the point that the questioner is making, and I even agree with it. I don't know who's here from Academic Affairs. Oh, we have Vice Provost Ann Jones is here, so she's going to take under advisement or come up and explain what we're doing. So Professor Jones is in the School of Molecular Sciences as a chemist, but she's also the Vice Provost for all things related to, in a sense, the academic program structure, degree programs, course structures, et cetera, of the whole university. So.
And I've taught A and B session chemistry for
Yes.
first-year students. So as the questioner articulates, C session is twice as long as A and B, which is why you take half as many classes when you take them in A or B session, so that on net, it's the same amount of material spread across the same amount of time. Now, there is a fallacy that a STEM course in a C session is easier because it's less material or over a longer time. That's in fact not the case. And in fact, our data demonstrates students are more successful in those A and B session courses than they are in the C session courses, especially online. Now, why is that, right? It sounds counterintuitive. They're probably more successful because they have less time to forget things. So in the A and B session classes, students actually have higher grades. They're more likely to pass because they're not forgetting things and they're learning the material faster. And this has been seen outside the online environment. This has been seen outside ASU time and time again, so that it's actually to students' advantage that we not offer those C-session STEM courses.
So what I'll say, though, relative to this specific student is that this specific student can raise their hand and say, you know, here's what other optionalities do I have? So they should write to me and remind me, michael.crow@asu.edu, and then remind me of this question and then remind me of what they specifically want, and we can look at that. But the facts in terms of outcomes are often not intuitive. And so the forgetting part, I understand that. I think I tell people I've forgotten more than you know, but they don't laugh when I say that.
Well, thank you. This next question comes from Noah on Zoom. Where can students who have ideas for new technologies to enhance learning outcomes collaborate with ASU?
Well, there's several places. You can try to link up with Luminosity, which is a group of students that are working to innovate and invent new things. You could link up with Professor Danielle McNamara, who's working on our Learning Engineering Center. You could link up with Professor Mickey Choi, who's a learning focused faculty member. You could link up with Sean Hobson, who's the head of design at the ASU efforts associated with developing new things in what's called Ed Plus at ASU. You can link up with him there. You can take your ideas forward into the entrepreneurial world. You can go into the startup boot camp. You can go into the entrepreneurship and innovation activities in the ASU Knowledge Enterprise activities. So there's lots of places to plug in. And if all else fails, you send your idea to me, and then I'll get it to a person that will talk to you. So.
Perfect, thank you.
This question comes from Devlin on Zoom. ASU's ACD 401 defines harassment as quote unquote, oh wait, no, actually quote, unwelcome behavior based on a protected status which is sufficiently severe or pervasive as to create an intimidating, hostile, or offensive environment. You have acknowledged that these groups, such as College Republicans United, are in violation of ASU's spirit and policy. So how do you justify their continued operation on campus?
Well, that's a very complicated question in the sense that these are all subjective judgments. And so we're looking at them on an ongoing basis. I'll have Dr. Vogel comment on this also. The last time that they were on campus, how many members are in their group? 20 or fewer members. Sometimes it's as low as 4 members. Yeah, 4 to 6 sometimes. And so they held an event where they were saying things that other students found offensive. We looked at that very, very carefully. Our determination was that it was in some ways farcical. And so, which doesn't mean that people were not bothered by what they were saying. You know, I'm bothered by many things I hear people say. I don't know that I feel threatened by those things, and so that's a big difference, you know. Well, the question really wasn't about Turning Point. It is. The question, as read it, just the question was about College Republicans, so the Turning Point words were not used in the question that was read to me. Well, I'm just saying that you just said, could you please reread it? That isn't what was read, so. If we have time, sure, go ahead. So again, that's a different question than the question that was read to me. So just to be clarifying what you said. So this is a new question. I understand, but I'm talking about what I was answering. I can't hypothesize what you wanted it to say. And so that would be almost impossible for anyone to do. So given the way that you framed the question, you know, the individuals from Turning Point that were, did the misconduct, they were sanctioned and by the government, by law, and all Turning Point, and I stand by what I said, I think they've appeared on campus since that. Oh. So
I think it's an important distinction on this one that the Turning Point members that you're referring to had made their way through the legal process were actually part of Turning Point National, which is headquartered in Tempe. That is different from the Turning Point USA at ASU groups that do continue to have meetings. So we were unable to find that those individuals were a student and part of the student organization.
they were employees of this national organization. Well, that's our hope, for which we'll hold everyone, you know, accountable at the level of police interdiction. Yes, yes. But and I appreciate you standing up to get the clarification. If you could stand up again so I can see you while I'm talking to you. So I was just answering the question that was being presented. So I appreciate your giving me the clarification of the question. And let me say that just to reiterate that the behavior of those two employees of Turning Point National were criminal acts, disgusting. In every possible way that were antithetical to everything the country stands for. And so we pursued the legal actions against them with everything that we had. And this distinction that Dr. Vogel has made between a student group and the national group, they're not the same thing, and we could find no linkages.
Thank you. As part of the graduate student government, I've heard a lot of students also express these concerns.
No, I understand. I mean, I'll just add, I mean, these individuals lied at every turn. They made false representations. There was physical video evidence of their actual conduct and their behavior. I mean, they were unable of even owning what they had done. I mean, and then you know, in a sense, being sanctioned for it. They were sanctioned, but I mean, it was just lie after lie after lie after lie. So it's very hard to engage people who have an inability to tell the truth.
Thank you. This is going to be one of our last two questions. This question is from Michael on Zoom. What is ASU's plan to ensure that the recent non-renewals or layoffs of contingent faculty will not negatively impact our student learning conditions in the classroom?
So very few, I mean, we don't use the word contingent faculty. I don't even know where that comes from. So we have tenure track faculty, we have career track faculty, which are called teaching faculty, which are eligible for multi-year appointments. We have some faculty that are appointed, this is where the word contingent comes from, appointed to teach a particular class in a particular semester or a particular course in a particular semester. And so non-renewal at this point is not a function of anything other than one of two things, either performance or demand for those classes. And so we do have parts of the teaching faculty that go up and down based on demand for those classes. And then also sometimes, I don't know about this particular case, faculty members are not renewed because their performance was not deemed to be at the quality that we're looking for. So there's no systematic change in the faculty. There's no layoffs of the faculty. None of that is going on. So that's not what's going on in this particular case. So then the question that's being asked about where we're headed or where we're going is, we're covering all of the courses that are required. We're covering all of the courses that students need to accelerate towards their degrees that are required. So ups and downs in the faculty are a function of the two things that I outlined.
Thank you.
This last question we received from James, an undergraduate student, it's a fun one. Can ASU partner with LEGO for a set, maybe an architect set for Gamage or even Old Main?
I don't know what an architect set is. I have 5 grandchildren and most of my money goes for their Legos now, so. And so like when they want the X-Wing fighter or something, and then they want the fighter base and then the whole Death Star thing to fight, and then, it's just, Death Stars are pretty expensive. So I don't know what that is. Is that like a thing the size of Gamage or something?
Like a big structure, Lego structure.
It'd be a miniaturized structure of Gamage or even Old Main.
Yeah.
Oh, if somebody wants to do that and they can come up with a way to do it, sure, we'll come up with some money to do that.
Sounds good.
Probably, yeah. Probably not if it's $100,000, but if
Noted.
it's like $10,000, we'll come up with that. So.
Well, thank you so much, President Crow. To any students whose questions were not answered here today, they are currently being forwarded to the proper places within the university so that they can be answered. And you should receive an answer for those questions soon. Again, thank you so much for coming today. Please join us at the next Student Crow Forum in the fall, and have a wonderful day. Go Sun Devils. Thank you so much.